96. The clerk will please read the bill.
SB 1396 by West, relating to the tax on the sale and use of aircraft, imposing a tax, providing civil and criminal penalties.
Chair recognizes Mr. Patty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Senate Bill 1396 is an agreed-upon bill with the comptroller and the general aviation industry. Currently, there is a great deal of dispute regarding the application of sales and use tax on private aircraft. There are currently over 100 pending cases in dispute between taxpayers and the comptroller's office. Senate Bill 1396 provides a bright line test for the two main issues we have with sales and use tax on private aircraft. One is, what is a true lease? And two, where does use occur? Senate Bill 1396 provides some prospective clarity for taxpayers and the comptroller in making sales tax determinations. This bill is solely prospective and will not affect any existing cases. There is no fiscal note in this bill, as it does not change current tax law, but rather provides clarity going forward as to what the law is, and ideally will reduce litigation between the comptroller and taxpayers.
Mr. Schofield?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman yield for questions?
Absolutely.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Patty, I want to thank you for your work on this bill. I know that there has been uncertainty about the interpretation of the current law in this area, and I think your bill should clear that up and should help the state avoid a lot of needless litigation. And to that end, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions for legislative intent, if I might.
Sure.
Is my understanding correct that your bill is the result of working with the stakeholders in the comptroller's office to clear up the interpretation of the current law in the tax code regarding aircraft transactions that's been unclear?
That is correct. This bill does not change any current tax law.
And my understanding is that the previous controller's staff gave an interpretation of the tax code that didn't seem to comport with the wording of that section, and that all your bill does is give the comptroller the tools necessary to ensure that his staff understands and enforces the tax code as the legislature enacted it. Is that correct?
I would agree with that. Clarity on both the comptroller's side as well as the taxpayer's side.
So is it true that this bill does not create a new tax cut or a tax shift or a tax abatement? Absolutely not.
This does not create any new exemptions, does not change current tax law.
And in fact, it has a zero fiscal note.
Absolutely. In fact, I would absolutely argue that it might have a positive one, and that it'll eliminate these litigations going forward.
And so this bill does not grant any new rulemaking authority and is only meant to clarify and give direction on how the legislature intends the existing tax code section to apply in aircraft transactions without the necessity of any new rulemaking. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding as well. Again, there is no change to current tax law.
And finally, since the bill simply seeks to clarify the legislature's intent regarding the interpretation of the current section of the code, it should apply to transactions that are in the mix now. Is that correct?
Yes, this is prospective, so it would have no effect on existing cases.
So it's just this is just an understanding of the interpretation of how the law has always been since it was originally enacted.
Correct.
Mr. Patty, thank you for your work on this issue. You have a good bill. Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Schofield.
I'd like to move that the discussion between myself and Mr. Patty be reduced to writing and placed in the Journal.
Members, you've heard the request that the comments between Mr. Schofield and Mr. Patty be reduced to writing and placed in the Journal. Is there any objection? Chair is none. So ordered.
Move passage.
Mr. Patty moves passage to third reading on Senate Bill 1396. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. So ordered. Are you ready? Chair recognizes Mr. Hunter for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, members, I request permission for the Committee on Calendars to meet while the House is in session at 4:40 p.m. today, May 23rd, 2015, place 3W9 to consider a calendar.
Members, you heard the motion. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Following announcement, the clerk will please read the